Season 3, Episode 1, Communicate, Teach, and Learn. An interview with David Whalen, CEO of Immersive Education Limited and creator of Engage VR. Welcome.
Great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, welcome today. Today we're off Season 3 of the VR podcast, and we're going to be trying out something very new. So please bear with us because we're actually recording inside of VR. This is the first time that we have done this. And of course, I have none of my teammates here, but that's okay because they're off on their summer break as educators, as they should be. James is actually suffering through a storm. He actually has no power right now. So let's just send our thoughts out to him. And who cares about those that are just around having fun on their summer vacation? But anyways, Engage is actually a social, multi-user virtual world that's designed for education. And wouldn't you know it, today we have the pleasure of actually hearing from the CEO and creator of Engage, David Whalen. So actually though, before we get started, right, I just want to make note that Engage is being tested on the Oculus Quest, okay? And so I'm in a Quest right now. I don't know if we can tell.
Mm-hmm.
Can we tell that I'm in a Quest? I can see you as a half body avatar, okay?
Yeah, so it looks very, very similar to the PC version of Engage. And the main difference you will see when you're in the Quest is you'll see Quest avatars, which are slightly different to our full PC avatars.
Which we're definitely familiar with because we've been using Engage as a platform to communicate for, I would say, upwards of a year and a half. And we love it. And I personally can't see a difference between the two. So that's using standalone Quest-based Engage as opposed to PC desktop-based. I can't.
Yeah. Well, standalone VR is definitely where it's at, and especially in the education space where it's a very hard sell for educators to buy a very high-end PC and a tethered device. That's a $1,500 expense. Whereas the Oculus Quest, it's $400, less than the price of an iPad. Really, that's a compelling case that you can go to schools and universities and say, hey guys, I know you bought iPads in the past, and really that's a lot of video content and text content. What you get with VR, you can get so much more, and you can really experience your education, not just read through it.
Isn't that true? I love that because part of your logo, right? Actually, you have it up there right there. So learn through experience. I mean, that's one of the key things about social VR, I think, just in general, is that we're always learning. And I think actually I'm going to ask for your definition in a second, but people get confused when they try to define what VR is and why it's so beneficial, I think, for education, right? But the fact of the matter is as humans, right, we know this, that we learn spatially, but we get that opportunity inside of VR. So do you mind explaining sort of what the power of and why, and also lead into maybe like why you guys built this platform?
Yes, so I'm in Ireland, obviously, with a very, very strong Irish accent that you can hear right now. And we're very lucky in Ireland that our education is completely free. So if I wanted to go to university or college, the government pays for that, and there's no charge at all to the students. But if I was in the United States, or if I was in the UK, as an example, if I wanted to get a 4-year university degree, I could expect to spend many thousands of dollars, sometimes in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Really, that's pricing out middle income and lower income families from providing a good third level education to their kids. And really where they're looking at the moment is online education. So a lot of these people that can afford to go to a brick and mortar institute, like MIT as an example, they would go to online courses like Coursera or edX, and they'll do courses there. But very few people finish these online courses. They're not engaged with the content. They're looking at video, they're reading text, and then people expect them to come out the other end with a qualification. That simply doesn't work. And really, we're really after that distance learning platform. So with Engage, you're in a virtual classroom, you're talking to virtual people who are real people. I'm in Ireland right now, you're in America, but we feel like we're only 2 or 3 feet away from each other. And as I'm talking to you, I'm engaging with you, I'm looking directly at you. And that's what you can do in virtual reality that you can't do in any other medium. And not only that, you can do some very immersive learning. So instead of just in a virtual classroom, why not drop a dinosaur in the center of the room? Why not go on a trip to Mars? Why not do some simulated tasks like putting an engine together? This is all stuff that is very easy to do. We even have virtual whiteboards. You can just stand up, draw on whiteboard, collaborate over long distances. All this stuff is made possible within virtual reality that traditional media just didn't have access to.
I think you summed that up perfectly. Traditional media didn't have access to these types of experiences. So as Jeremy Bounce and others would say about using VR for, impossible, rare, expensive, dangerous, kind of productive things of that nature. Here's a new acronym, DICE. But using that for things that are outside of the particular student, schools, paradigm, right? Those type of things. And so it's really exciting to see that not only, and I'm not sure in the order in which these experiences were developed, but you guys have other experiences that are also educational too, right? And they're full on CG, beautiful experiences, award-winning experiences like Apollo 11. Where did those fall in the order of development? And then, the background and reason why you chose that versus like a game, like a shooter.
Yeah, so developing a platform like Engage takes many, many years to get right, and this is 4 years development right here is what we're sitting in. But VR is really a hot ticket 3 or 4 years ago when the first Oculus Rift came out. Really, when you're trying to excite educators, it's very hard to get them excited about a platform. So if you say, "Hey guys, go out and check my platform," they go, "Oh, okay, I might check it out later." But if you say to people, "Okay, do you want to be Neil Armstrong for an hour? Do you want to dive on the shipwreck of Titanic? Do you want to witness it sinking?" These are our showcase experiences and are very emotive pieces. And they get people thinking about, okay, VR can be used for education because VR is not a new technology. It's been around for 40 years. It's been used in education for 40 years. It's just hugely expensive. And we're trying to get the mass market into VR, into education. So it's these titles like Apollo and Titanic, and we have a space shuttle experience coming out later this year. These are showcase experiences that with all the content that we create within those experiences, you can reuse them inside the Engage platform for your own needs. We have the Apollo 11 landing site inside Engage. We have the actual launch pad as well from Apollo 11 inside Engage. We have a Titanic museum. These are all assets we would have had to create anyway. So we're creating the assets, we're publishing showcase experiences, but all the time it's building up the asset base on this platform.
I like that. How hard was it to create those emotive pieces and to make sure that they're historically accurate? Is it because some of the recordings that we hear inside of in Apollo 11 they're all what you call it?
They're all actual recordings.
Public
they're all
domain at this point.
Public domain. Yeah. So when we were searching Apollo 11, everything that NASA do, because it is a public entity, is public domain. Well, almost everything. The only thing we couldn't use is the astronaut's likeness. So I actually played Buzz Aldrin inside the Apollo 11 experience. It's my face you see inside. They're sitting down. But we did use all the real audio. Even the moon surface is real. So when you're looking out of the cockpit of Eagle 1 as it's coming down for the landing, that's the photo mosaic that NASA created for the simulator that the astronauts trained on. So every valley and every crater you see is exactly accurate. Because we are an education company, we want to make sure we're as accurate as possible. We did take some artistic license. Obviously, the launch didn't take 7 minutes to get to space. It was 14 minutes, but we kind of narrowed it down a bit. And we took off the shields that was on the window as well, so kids could look out the window. Because really, it needs to be accurate, but also needs to inspire. And really, the inspirational part of it really came to the forefront, and then we made it as accurate as possible. Even in Titanic, there was 2 years of research went into Titanic, very accurate version of the shipwreck. When you dive in certain areas of the shipwreck, you hear the real survivors talk themselves. We licensed audio from BBC, so it's real survivor words you're hearing from the survivors themselves as you enter certain areas of the shipwreck. So we do put a lot of care and detail into these experiences. And then we did work with BBC on Berlin Blitz. Again, original audio. We put you inside a Lancaster bomber. You go on a mission over Berlin in 1943. And what we're doing is we're not creating stories. We're just telling the story as it happened, because history is exciting enough in my eyes. Like, history is super exciting. You have to do is just tell the story. You don't have to embellish anything. There's a huge and vast history from many, many countries. And the reason we chose Apollo as the first, it's one story that's universally told in every city, every town around the world. Even in Russia, they just say it as it happened. They have huge respect for what the US did back in the 1960s, as did everybody around the world.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. And I love the fact that these experiences are being made, because there's two things that I take away from what you just described. When you described the fact that you condensed the 14-minute launch to 7 minutes, what I thought, and what I think what our audience thinks, is, because our audience are all educators, they're all fairly versed in the immersive communities. They understand the technology, they own and use the technology with their peers and also with their students. But what I have found with your experiences specifically is that, for instance, as you're leaving the Titanic, okay, and you're on the raft, it's extremely slow. But it's slow because you've taken into consideration not only the length of time that people are in it, but they're prone, you're getting rid of that nausea symptom, right? So you're considering various aspects of what the technology can do negatively and sort of like addressing that. And then two, your experiences, there's tons of science. I mean, science out there dissecting a frog, things of that nature. It's all out there. And I love the fact that history, as you mentioned, is not told necessarily so much through VR enough at this point, but yet that falls in the category of impossible. How do we spatially experience this so that kids can understand, students can understand better what took place and how they can make sure that things that, like, certain things don't happen again, society.
I think it's like we're trying to bring emotion into education. As you said, there is a lot of science apps out there and they're really, really good at learning tasks. You're trying to excite children and kids into education. And you need to have an emotional response to what you taught, because you only remember movies that make you laugh or make you cry, and because you've had an emotional response. And that's what we try to bring with our educational experiences. Through shock, it could be wonder, it could be anything, but as long as they have some kind of emotional reaction, that means that we're doing our job right, because they really need to engage within their content. And within the Engage platform that we're sitting in today, it really is a tool set for educators globally to create and share their own content. And not only educators, but students themselves can come in here and create their own locations. So you might give a group of 5 or 6 students a task and say, go off and build a Roman villa and reenact what life was like back in Rome 2,000 years ago. Yeah. They can do that within this platform as their project and then share that with their other students or with the educators themselves and get graded on that. So it's a really powerful tool for that kind of collaborative work.
It is. I'd love to also then highlight some of that's a segue into highlighting some of the tools that are available inside of Engage. What can we use it for? So use cases, and then let's travel on to like observations, because I know you guys have done tons of case studies. You've observed these things and documented them, whether they're anecdotal or not, and the benefits are huge. The use cases,
So some of the tool sets within Engage really is you can have up to 40 people logged in here remotely into the same virtual environments. They can either be in the same room or at all different locations. We have a VR record feature. So as I'm inside the platform can record everything I do and say, also record my movement and any objects that I bring into the environment. And if I'm a really good, competent presenter, I can have a PowerPoint behind me as I do right now. I can record a lecture style presentation. I can then sit down from the point of view of the students, replay that over again. And if I'm happy with my performance, I can publish that on the platform as is and then sell that content if need be. But not only can I record myself, I can also record all the audience. I can record the students and everything that they do and say within the platform. So if the group task, you can sit back down and look at the group task and make judgments on, okay, you should have done this or you should have done that. It can also be used for corporate training, say betterment programs, so presenting skills, interviews. All of that can be done within the platform as well, very, very easily. And we've made a very, very intuitive menu system where you have a virtual iPad, because we know educators know how to use iPads. Yeah. And it's just a touch screen where they can drop objects within the platform. And if you're on Quest, we do have a virtual screen where you can select objects as well. And we think it's quite easy to use, and we are getting feedback all the time from educators out there using it. So we work quite a lot with Oxford University in the UK. We've done a wide variety of lecture style content with those guys. We've done stuff on research, we've done stuff on manuscripts, and we've done stuff on statistics. And one of the bigger ones that we created with Oxford University was a medical training app, where what they used to do in Oxford was they'd send the professors from Oxford over to Africa to train students there how to resuscitate babies with very limited equipment, and they'd use a very realistic doll. It was very expensive to do that. But now what they do is within the Engage platform, they teach the students remotely using HTC Vives, and we have a virtual baby, and you do their life-saving training in virtual reality. And it's a lot more intense. When you're working on a doll, the doll doesn't respond. You might have 20 people in the room with you as well, and you might feel a bit silly. Whereas when you're in virtual reality, because you're completely immersed in the content and the baby is getting bluer until you save it, people come out and they'd be totally sweating with stress until they save that baby because they have 4 minutes. And that's just one of the examples.
That's interesting. So I'm going to go on a quick tangent then. So can Engage, first of all of those features we use and we love. We love the fact that you can do distance learning, and we also love the fact that the students feel like they're actually present. They enjoy using the technology because they're so connected and they can easily, it's like Skype in a classroom or mystery
Mhm.
Skype. So you would actually have, or like pen pals, right? You have these conversations and dialogues with people from across far distances. But now we do it, and we engage additional senses as a part of that experience. And so, as educators, if what we're trying to do is actually create memories through that, and that is learning, then the additional senses increase that chance. At least that's what we see and observe. Um, so, going back to the medical example, I'm just thinking now, like we have for Wi-Fi, for wireless access points, there's a point-to-point style access point, right? We're creating a bridge. There's point to multi-point, which we're most familiar with, where multiple devices are on a single device. In that example of the training of the operating on the baby, is it
Mhm.
is the trainer seen by the user, and does the user see the other users standing over the baby, or does everybody have their own experience, yet they're all hearing the one trainer? Does that make sense?
It
Is the
can be
question?
yeah, it can be both. So when you
Huh.
log into the virtual experience, you can set yourself up as a trainee or the trainer. So if you set yourself up as the trainer, you're setting all the tasks for the trainee who's standing next to the baby and trying to do all the tasks.
Yeah.
If you set yourself up as a trainee and there's no one set as a trainer, there's a virtual trainer, a recorded virtual trainer that will provide the content there and then.
Okay.
And as you go through tasks, it'll go on to the next one. And then you have an option then to just stand and watch, where you can watch exactly what's happening by the person. You can also, you don't have to be in VR to watch it. You can also watch it on a standard desktop display as well.
That's a really good point too. It's available for standard desktop, both PC and Mac.
Not
Only
Mac
PC
yet,
at this
but
point. Okay.
it will come eventually. We're available on HTC Vive, all Windows
Hmm.
mixed reality devices,
Hmm.
and Oculus Quest, and very soon HTC Vive Focus.
Oh, okay. So if it's focused, does that mean that we might have access to all the Wave devices, possibly?
Well,
Oh,
possibly the more powerful ones. So
okay,
you're looking
gotcha.
at the Pico G2 and above.
Okay, okay, good to know. Good to know. Um, okay. And then observations. So as you guys see and hear back from schools and universities and even business that are using your products, what are they saying? Whether are they saving money? Are they saving time? Are they attracting new talent? What are you
Yeah,
seeing out there?
so we're seeing it's the business cases are taking it up as like a sales tools and for virtual meetings. And because
Okay.
it is quite secure, you can set up meetings with a password, your own virtual room. You can also set up meetings through our web app, like GoToMeeting, and you can link up OneDrive, Google Docs, and some other cloud platforms as well. And you can share desktop all within Engage in the Quest. So it's very useful for people for business meetings. That's the biggest use case currently for corporate. In education, then we work with Shenandoah University. They're a really good university to work with first responders on first responder training. So they do stuff
Mm-hmm.
like active shooter training. They'll also do stuff as in one example. Actually, he was talking down somebody from a ledge, with a virtual megaphone and how people react in stressful situations. They've also done some long distance interview skills in there as well with people with disabilities, as an example. So you might have
Okay.
somebody with kind of a mild type of autism. Now, people with autism, what they find very hard is to read emotions on people's faces, and they really withdraw in themselves. When they come into a platform like Engage, because we have full body avatars, we have facial avatars as well. But the thing with our faces is they don't emote the same as they do in the real world. So people with mild autism actually really relax and open up within a virtual platform, and they can speak a lot easier to a virtual person in a virtual room than they would with a real person.
I think that's key. That's one of the keys of the technology is that it can reach a different subset of users in a different
Mm-hmm.
way. And so, like, as I feel you are sitting right in front of me, the user that's working with the child that's autistic could actually probably possibly be in the room next door. It doesn't,
They
but
couldn't.
it's a tool, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, they
I
could
love
indeed.
that.
And we're actually seeing as well that VR has a lasting effect. So
Mm,
even when, gee, here's an anecdote. So the very first place we ever demonstrated virtual reality in public was we had a very early prototype of the Apollo 11 experience. We brought it to a
mm.
place called Wexford in Ireland. This is where JFK's family are from. And we went to JFK's grandfather's school and we showed it to the school kids. Okay. And they all obviously they really, really enjoyed it. And then at the very end of the demonstration, the educator came up to me, the teacher, and said, "We have one more person. Can we put this person in and give him a demonstration?" They didn't say anything else to us. And it was one of the janitors. He was about 40 years old. He came
Oh,
in, he tried out the VR experience, and he seemed to enjoy it. And he took it off and said, "How did you find that?" He said, "Yeah, that was very good." And he went away. 20 minutes later, the same educator came up with tears in her eyes. And we were like, "Geez, what's wrong?" And they said that that
mm.
person that was inside has severe autism. Been working here for the past 15 years. They've never ever said more than one or two words. And they're down there in the cafeteria and they're talking like parrots. They're talking all about the experience
Wow.
and really after opening up. And it lasted quite a while after that. And we're seeing similar effects with other people within the platform where if they have like a mild autism that they open up inside and they feel more comfortable. And it lasts when they come out of VR.
I love that. I think there's just so many opportunities to use this as a new medium. I mean, as educators, we talk about how different modalities and how we're reaching the different students while we're trying to teach the exact same content, their auditory, their
Mhm.
kinesthetic, etc. And this is just one more tool in our belt there. Um,
Mhm. But
I guess.
even myself, I'm dyslexic myself, so I never went to
Okay.
university or college. And I'm
Mhm.
really good at some subjects and I'm really poor at other subjects. And it's not that my educators were poor, it's just I responded better to some educators. And I'm hoping within
Mhm.
a platform like Engage, as more educators use it, we want to turn educators into rock stars. So you can pick and choose your educators. So if you want to do physics in MIT in the morning and then English literature in Oxford University in the afternoon, we want to provide people the opportunity to do that because you might have five educators, but you respond good to one of them because
Yeah.
they're the kind of person that you can relate to and you'll learn a lot easier from that person. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here.
I love that choice. I mean, boy, if we could have a conversation around what university looks like in the future, that would be like another 2 hours.
Hmm.
Speaking of the future, then, what can you share with our audience about the future of Engage, possibly, or other things that you guys might be working on as far as immersive education is concerned?
Yeah, well, look, our big focus is engage. Everything we do as a company, showcase experiences, any one-off pieces of work, everything is focused back into engage. It's all building
Mhm.
our assets set out. Like really engage. We see this as the future of education, the future of online education. And in many cases, it's probably going to be a lot of people's only choice because there's only so many universities, there's only so many educators, and there's so many foreign exchange students that are coming in as well, paying huge premiums for classes as well. It really is an unfair advantage for people who have money to get a good education. I truly believe that there is somewhere in the world an Einstein level person flipping burgers in Burger King because they never had the opportunity to talk to these world class educators. And within our platform, Engage, world class educators can record their content, VR record their content, their presence, and people will feel like they're getting that one to one education because that person really feels like they're in front of them. It's not just a video, it looks and feels and acts like a real person. And that's what we're trying to bring to the world.
I I love that. Okay, so as educators, we use social media all the time. We love Twitter. That's how we connect with people around the world, right? And I know our audience knows Steve Bomberry, and I know that most of our audience knows that he is no longer at Jest, but that he did have these CPD and VR events, hosted them right here in this particular interview room, and we all connected in that way. So for our listeners who don't have or are not yet using Engage, can you just close up with how they can get it, where they can find you guys, how much is it, is there a premium offering, and just let's take it from there.
Yeah, so they can download a free version of Engage by going to our website, engagevr.io. Um, Again, it will work on a standard desktop display, but
Yeah.
really the real benefit is in VR. And we highly
Mm.
recommend getting either an Oculus Quest or HTC Vive Focus. We're currently in the final stages of developing the standalone version of Engage, and we'll be releasing it quite soon, hopefully on most of the major stores. And there is a premium version of Engage that offers you additional assets and additional options for creating content, but you can just contact us and we can work on a deal by deal basis.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. David, thank you. Before we actually close out, I just want to tell our audience, and I know they can't see this, but occasionally, if you do see it, we're going to try to post this on our YouTube channel. And so if you see it, it's kind of funny because occasionally I look out to the audience. There's really nobody there, but there were 3 people assisting us, right? We had Andrew as a cameraman. We had Chris Manson, as he's actually listed as host, but he created this, he's hosting this room for us. He's on the technical end of it. And where did Mike go?
I think he disappeared.
Might have had to bounce, but that's okay. So we have those 3 people out there. I love recording this inside of Engage. Now, the only bummer is if I don't know my stuff, then I can't do this. I have a headset on and I don't have my notes. The good thing is, in a Quest, I have a little crack through my nose, so I can just peer down a little bit onto my notes if I had to remember something. So don't be afraid of using Engage or feel like you can't get through it because you don't know your stuff. I mean, Engage is such a perfect platform to interact with people across large distances. And I think, David, I mean, do you have any last thoughts for our audience before we close this episode out, which has been just a great one? It's been a blast.
I'd just like to say thanks to my guys back in the office. I have a lot of really key technical staff that really put a lot of hours in, especially Mike Armstrong. He would have been an ex-Riftmax guy back in the day, and some really key guys. Obviously, Chris Madsen's doing great work in the US. So if anybody wants to reach out, just look up Chris Madsen on LinkedIn or follow us on Twitter at VR Education.
I love it. Well, David, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. And thanks to our listeners for joining us on this journey. If you liked our conversation today, don't forget to check out the other episodes. We also want you to join in the conversation. So use hashtag VR podcast to ask questions or comment on VR, immersive technology, or even about the VR podcast itself. So thank you again for David, for you to joining us today. You can check them out again at immersiveeducation.com. Find them on Twitter at VR Education. And also the Engage dedicated website is engagevr.io. So thank you guys all for joining us. We will see you next time. Thank you.